Get that porter out of my gala. People like him mop hallways. They do not stand among my guests. God, ma'am. The guest backed into my tray. I was clearing the table. Guy, your table. Get on your knees and pick up every shard. Use your vest if you have to. Oops, my Riesling slipped. Look at you. Even the mop needs a mop. You're done here. Ray, check his coat. His kind always pockets the silverware. Guy, you should be careful who you send home, Miss Fairchild. A threat. From the help. How precious. Out. Guy, good morning, Miss Fairchild. Please sit. You look pale. Guy, you're a porter. God, I was long enough to see exactly who you are. I own 58% of this company. Your office, your title, and your future. Guy, that's impossible. Guy, impossible is what people say when they never bothered to look down. Have you ever been dismissed because of the uniform you wore instead of the mind underneath it? This is how a porter erased a CEO's empire in 48 hours. 4:30 in the morning, mid-January, downtown Toronto. The Hargrove Grand Hotel stood on the corner of King and Simcoe like a limestone cathedral that had learned to charge by the night. Frost crawled up the brass revolving doors. The lobby chandelier burned low, casting long amber shadows over the marble. One man worked alone inside that silence. Nathaniel Okoye, 43 years old, gray porter's vest, sleeves folded to the forearm. He pushed a utility cart down the east corridor, its wheels ticking softly on the stone. The smell of wood polish and cold air moved with him. Somewhere above, the furnace kicked and the building exhaled through its vents like a sleeping animal. He stopped at room 114 and crouched to inspect a scuff on the baseboard. 22 years ago, a woman named Esther Okoye knelt in the same hallway with a rag and a bucket of soapy water. She cleaned rooms on the 3rd and 4th floors, double shifts through December when the holiday guests came, varicose veins wrapped in compression stockings she bought at the Shoppers on Dundas. She raised her boy on a housekeeper's paycheck and a borrowed library card. In Nathaniel's breast pocket sat her old name tag. Faded blue plastic, white letters, Estero, housekeeping. The pin on the back had broken years ago. He carried it anyway. By 6, the building woke up. Nathaniel greeted everyone who came through the service entrance. He knew the overnight bellman, Felix, whose wife had just started chemo at Sunnybrook. He knew the sous chef, Mrs. Aquino, who slipped leftover brioche into the staff fridge on Wednesdays. People in gray vests learn a hotel's pulse. Nobody ever asks them what they feel. 2 staff elevators served the Hargrove Grand. The oak-paneled one carried guests and executives up to the penthouse suites. The steel one at the back carried linen carts, room service trays, and people the guests never saw. Nathaniel rode the steel one. He listened. In 4 months, he had learned more from that service elevator than any quarterly report could tell him. Housekeepers denied overtime. A front desk clerk written up for speaking Tagalog on break. Names that vanished from the roster after filing complaints with HR. At 6:15, his phone buzzed in the supply closet. He shut the door before answering. A woman's voice came through, precise and unhurried. Birchfield closes Saturday morning. The signatures are ready. Are you sure you still want to stay invisible? Nathaniel looked at the shelf of bleach bottles and folded rags. One more night, he said. The gala is Friday. I need to see who she is when no one important is watching. He slid the phone back into his pocket and picked up a fresh roll of garbage bags. At 7:45, the lobby met its first test. Candace Fairchild swept through the revolving doors like a weather system in Kashmir, heels striking the marble, phone pressed to her ear. She cut straight across the section Nathaniel had just buffed. Her boot heels left gray crescents on the shine. She never looked down. She never looked at him. She finished her espresso and, without breaking stride, set the empty cup on the edge of his cart as she passed. The way a person drops a coin into a tip jar without seeing the hand. Nathaniel lifted the cup. A lipstick crescent smiled at him from the rim. He wiped the drip it left on the cart and kept moving. The elevator swallowed her. 14 floors up, Candace Fairchild occupied the corner office that overlooked the CN Tower and half the waterfront. CEO of the Hargrove Hospitality Group for 7 years. Investors loved her occupancy numbers. Toronto Life loved her wardrobe. Her executive assistants lasted 9 months on average. The people who emptied her wastebasket knew a different woman entirely. They tracked her moods like Environment Canada warnings, whispered floor to floor before she arrived each morning. That week, every corridor in the hotel buzzed about one thing: the Fairchild Winter Gala. Every January, Candace commandeered the Hargrove estate north of the city, a 100-acre property in King Township with a stone manor house and a frozen pond the caterers lined with luminaries. She hung 1,000 lanterns in the bare maples and invited 300 of the wealthiest names in Ontario. Officially, the gala raised money for underprivileged youth in the GTA. Unofficially, it raised Candace, her photograph beside every cabinet minister, her name engraved on every Crystal Award, her face on every society page. In the service hallway, a clipboard asked for gala support staff. Extra hands, extra pay, one long night. Nathaniel printed his name at the bottom. The floor supervisor, a tired woman named Mrs. Fong, frowned when she saw it. "You sure? Miss Fairchild gets sharp at her parties. The cold makes her worse." Nathaniel clicked the pen shut. "I've felt cold before. I want to see it up close." Friday evening arrived wrapped in snow. The sun set early behind the King Township pines, and the first town cars crunched up the gravel drive through a corridor of lanterns. Nathaniel buttoned his service jacket in a staff tent that smelled of propane heaters and pine boughs. Through the canvas flap, he watched servers carry champagne towers across the frozen lawn. A string quartet tuned inside the manor's great hall. Laughter rang sharp in the January air. 300 guests, 1,000 lanterns, and one porter nobody planned to notice. The night had no idea what it was holding. The estate glowed like something borrowed from a fairy tale and never returned. Lanterns hung in the maples, dripping gold onto the snow. A string quartet played Debussy under the vaulted stone ceiling. Servers in black moved between the tables, carrying lobster medallions and crystal flutes. Ontario's wealthiest laughed beneath the chandeliers. Bay Street bankers, tech founders, a retired Supreme Court justice, and at the center of it all, in a floor-length ivory gown, stood Candace Fairchild, glowing brighter than her own lanterns. Nathaniel worked the edges. His job was simple: restock the service stations, clear the empties, keep the back lanes moving. He hauled cases of Niagara ice wine from the refrigerated truck. He swept a broken flute near the bar before anyone stepped on it. Sweat gathered under his collar despite the cold. He did not mind. When you watch a machine run, you learn where it squeaks. In the prep tent, he met Priya Sharma, 20 years old, a catering server saving for her second year at Ryerson. She moved fast and apologized to everyone, even the coat racks. Nathaniel helped her balance a tray she was about to lose. "You're the man from the hotel," she said, "the one who remembers everyone's kid's name." Nathaniel smiled. "Only the ones that matter, which is all of them." She laughed for the first time that shift. At 9, Candace took the stage. The spotlight found her like it had been waiting all evening. She spoke about giving back, about lifting the forgotten, about how generosity was the hallmark of those who had earned it. Her voice cracked in all the rehearsed places. 300 phones rose to record her. Behind the Great Hall's service door, Nathaniel stacked chairs and listened to a woman describe a kindness he had never once seen her practice. The auction raised $1.8 million in 35 minutes. A ski chalet in Mont-Tremblant. A weekend aboard a yacht named after Candace's mother. Guests bid with paddles in one hand and single malt in the other. On the projection screen behind the stage, photographs of smiling children rotated on a loop. Nobody asked their names. The children were set dressing. The money was applause converted into a currency Candace could wear. Then the auction wound down and the wine flowed heavier. Near the main hall, a service station ran low on glasses. A server waved Nathaniel over. Just one tray, 20 feet from the cart to the table. He lifted it high and started across the parquet edge of the dance floor. Lantern light spun. Perfume and wood smoke hung thick as fog. He was 5 steps from the station when it happened. A broad man in a tuxedo stepped backward, roaring at his own joke, a whiskey in each fist. His elbow slammed the tray. 14 glasses of Merlot took flight. They came down on the white linen runner, on the sleeve of a silver dress, on Nathaniel's vest. The crash cut through the Debussy like a gunshot. The quartet stopped. 300 heads turned. The man who caused it dissolved into the crowd without a word. Nathaniel was already kneeling, gathering glass with steady hands, stacking shards onto the tray. The woman in the silver dress touched her sleeve and said it was nothing. Really, it could have ended there. A mop, a cloth, 10 quiet minutes. But a spotlight was already swinging. Candace crossed the floor with the microphone still in her hand. She looked at the stain. She looked at Nathaniel kneeling in it, and she smiled the way a fox smiles at a rabbit frozen in headlights. She raised the microphone, and her voice rolled across the entire hall. Well, well, ladies and gentlemen, it appears the help is redecorating my gala. Laughter rippled, thin and uncertain. Nathaniel rose. Ma'am. The guest backed into me. I was clearing the station. I'll have this sorted in 10 minutes. Candace's eyebrows climbed. She turned to her audience, delighted. Did everyone catch that? It has opinions. She let the laughter build, then tilted her head at him. Tell me your name, sweetheart, slowly, so we can all hear who ruined my evening. Nathaniel Okoye. Facilities, night shift. Facilities. She tasted the word like curdled milk. And who told facilities it could walk through my guests? You smell like a loading dock. You were staining the air before you stained the carpet. A few guests shifted. Most kept their phones raised. In the catering line, Priya Sharma lifted hers too, hands trembling and pressed record. Candace gestured at the stain pooling under the lantern light. Do you have any idea what this linen costs? Hand-woven Italian. $42,000. That is more than you earn in a year, is it not? She did not wait for an answer. Of course it is, and now it is wearing your incompetence. Her voice dropped into something colder. My grandmother always said, you can put a shine on a boot. It is still a boot. She stepped closer. The ivory gown whispered against the stone floor. You want to keep this job? Then get on your knees and pick up every piece. Use your vest if you have to. The room went very still. Nathaniel looked at the stain, then at her. He knelt, not because he was broken, because some men can kneel without ever bowing. He folded a cloth and worked the wine in slow circles. Candace watched him for a moment. Then she lifted a fresh glass of Riesling from a passing tray. She held it out over his head and tipped it slowly, all the way. Pale gold ran through his hair, down his collar, into the linen he was cleaning. Oops, she said, into the microphone. My Riesling slipped. Look at you. Even the mop needs a mop. This time, nobody laughed. Somewhere in the back, a fork was set down on porcelain. A camera flash went off. Near the stage, an older board member named Douglas Fenton lowered his glass and did not pick it up again. His jaw tightened. 40 years on corporate boards had shown him executives at their worst. He had never seen anything quite like this. In the service line, a server leaned toward Priya. Someone should stop this, he whispered. No one did. 300 of the most powerful people in Ontario stood under the charity lanterns and studied their shoes. A senator checked his watch. A Bay Street partner reached for another drink. The great hall stayed very, very quiet. Nathaniel rose, wine dripping from his chin. He set the cloth down, squared his shoulders, and faced her. The silence stretched tight enough to hum. Candace mistook it for victory. She always did. She turned to the crowd, arms wide, a ringmaster in ivory. People like him clean hallways. They do not stand among my guests, and as of tonight, he does not stand among my employees either. She spun back to Nathaniel and let each word land like a blade. You're fired. Not by email, not by letter. Right here, in front of everyone. Consider it charity. It is the only kind you will ever touch. She snapped her fingers toward the security line. Ray, get this porter out of my gala. Ray Kovacs came through the crowd like a wall in a winter coat, head of corporate security, Candace's favorite enforcer. 2 guards flanked him. He gripped Nathaniel's arm hard enough to leave marks. Nathaniel did not pull away. He looked past Kovacs, straight at Candace, and spoke in a voice low enough that the microphone barely caught it. You should be careful who you send home, Miss Fairchild. For half a second, something flickered behind her eyes. Then the champagne and the spotlight washed it away. She laughed into the microphone. A threat. From the help. How precious. Out. The quartet struck up a waltz on her signal. Bright and forced, the Gala lurched back to life like an engine missing a cylinder. Two guards walked Nathaniel Okoye across the longest hallway in King Township. The walk to the front doors took 3 minutes. Nathaniel kept his spine straight the whole way, wine-dried sticky on the back of his neck. Snow swirled through the open door. Behind him the waltz played on, but the laughter never quite found its rhythm again. Guests parted as he passed, eyes sliding away, the way people avoid looking at an accident they helped cause. They were 10 feet from the entrance when Kovacs's radio crackled. Candace's voice came through bright with wine. "One more thing, Ray. Check his coat. His kind always pockets the silverware." Kovacs smiled for the first time all night. He held up one hand and the procession stopped beneath the stone archway. "You heard the lady. Open it." He yanked Nathaniel's winter coat from his arm and turned the pockets inside out. Everything Nathaniel carried fell onto the cold stone floor. A dented thermos, a paperback novel, spine cracked white, a granola bar still in its wrapper, and a name tag in a plastic sleeve face down on the flagstone. Phones leaned closer. Somewhere in the hall, a woman murmured, "Is this really necessary?" Nobody answered her. Kovacs crouched and picked through the items with 2 fingers like they might bite. No silverware, no crystal, no stolen bottle of wine. He shook the thermos, flipped the book, let the pages fan. Nothing fell out except a TTC transfer slip. The guests by the door began looking at one another. The show had run long and there was no finale in sight. Then he reached the name tag. He held it up to the lantern light. A faded blue rectangle, white letters, Easter O. House. Kabing! A cracked pin on the back. 22 years of floor wax and bleach embedded in the plastic. Kovacs snorted. Family heirloom, eh? He flicked the tag. It skittered across the stone and came to rest face down near the umbrella stand. For the first time that night, Nathaniel moved fast. Not at Kovacs. Past him. He knelt on the cold floor, picked up the name tag, and wiped the grit from it with his sleeve. The wine stains on his collar, the Riesling in his hair, none of it had touched his face. This did. His jaw worked once, twice. Then he slid the name tag inside his shirt against his chest and stood. Satisfied, his voice stayed level, but it carried gravel now. Kovacs straightened, found nothing, hated it. "Off the property," he said. "If I see you near the hotel, I'll have you charged with trespassing." The front doors swung open. January hit Nathaniel's wet hair like a slap. He gathered his things from the floor, one by one, taking his time, and walked through the doorway into the dark. Snow landed on his shoulders and did not melt. Behind him, the lanterns pulsed and the toasts carried on. He did not look back. He walked the shoulder of the county road for a while, before reaching his car, a 12-year-old Civic parked under a bare elm. His breath clouded the windshield. Behind him, the estate glowed against the tree line. He peeled the name tag from inside his shirt and set it on the dashboard. His mother smiled at him from 22 years of blue plastic. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he picked up the phone. Simone Leduc answered on the second ring. She was the kind of lawyer who slept with her phone on her pillow and her laptop open beside it. "Nathaniel, it is nearly midnight. I know. I'm sorry." A pause. "You don't sound sorry. You sound decided." Nathaniel watched a snowflake land on the windshield and hold its shape for 3 full seconds before collapsing. "Move the closing to tomorrow morning. First thing. And call an emergency board session for Monday, 8 a.m. 14th floor. Simone went quiet for 4 seconds. "What happened tonight?" "I got fired." "You got, Nathaniel, you own the place by Saturday." "Saturday," he corrected gently, "and the answer is the same person who has been firing people like me for 7 years. I watched it from the inside for 4 months. Tonight I wore it." He touched the name tag on the dash. "Now I'm done watching." "The sellers expect Friday," Simone said. "Their lawyers will not appreciate a Saturday call. Then we make Saturday worth appreciating. Offer the early signing bonus we discussed. Wire the difference. They'll come." Papers rustled on her end. A keyboard began to click. "You realize what you're asking me to do in 30 hours. I do. You've had the documents ready for 2 weeks. A short laugh escaped her. Yes, I have. All right, Mr. Okoye. Saturday it is. One more thing. The board notice, Simone said. It has to come from the new controlling shareholder. The moment I send it, people will start asking who Birchfield Capital is. Nathaniel looked through the windshield at the dark county road ahead. Let them ask. They had 4 months to ask who I was. Nobody did. They have until Monday at 8 to start wondering. While Nathaniel drove south on the 400, Priya Sharma sat on a bench at the Aurora Go station, scrolling through her footage with numb fingers. 13 minutes. Every second sharp and steady. She watched the Riesling fall in slow motion and felt her stomach turn all over again. She sent it to her group chat with the other servers. 3 words attached. Watch this now. By the time the train came, the video had been forwarded 11 times. By Sunday morning, it lived in 100 phones. Hargrove bellmen watched it in the break room. Front desk clerks watched it twice. A housekeeper on the 4th floor watched it and thought about her own daughter. Nobody posted it publicly. Fear has a long leash in a company like that. But it moved underneath, hand to hand like meltwater under a frozen river. Word of the video reached Kovacs on Sunday afternoon. He texted Candace. Some catering staff filmed Friday. Want me to handle it? Her reply took 5 seconds. Handle what? I gave a masterclass. Let them watch. Kovacs read the mess twice, shrugged, and cracked a beer. He was paid to follow orders, not to smell smoke. At 9 on Saturday morning, in a quiet law office above a bakery on Queen Street West, Nathaniel Okoye signed his name 41 times. The scent of sourdough drifted up through the floorboards. The Hargrove Family Trust sold its majority stake. 2 institutional funds followed. When the last page slid across the table, Simone Leduc capped her pen and looked at him. 58%. Congratulations. You now own the company that fired you last night. Nathaniel inhaled. Smells like bread, he said. Not like a hotel at all. At noon, the emails went out. 8 board members received the same message from a firm none of them recognized. Birchfield Capital Inc., new controlling shareholder of Hargrove Hospitality Group, requests an emergency session. Monday, 8 a.m. Executive boardroom, 14th floor. Attendance mandatory. Agenda. Leadership review. Within an hour, every phone on the board was ringing every other phone. Nobody had answers. Nobody recognized the name. Nobody could find a face behind Birchfield. Douglas Fenton read the email twice on his porch in Rosedale, snow falling into his coffee. Controlling shareholder. The Hargrove Trust had been quietly shopping its stake for a year. He knew that. What he had not known was that someone had actually bought it. He thought about the Gala, the wine running down a man's collar, the way the porter had stood there, calm as deep water. Douglas set his mug down and said to nobody in particular, 8 a.m. cannot come fast enough. Candace spent her Sunday in silk pajamas curating the Gala photos. She posted 14 of them on Instagram. Her favorite showed her mid-speech, arm raised, lanterns blazing behind her. The caption read, "Giving back is who we are." She read the board email between posts and rolled her eyes. Leadership review. Some activist fund flexing its new shares. She had eaten activist investors for breakfast before. She approved her own talking points and ordered a car for 7:30. There was one more item on her Monday agenda, and it made her smile. Her own compensation package, a $3.5 million retention bonus drafted by her favorite consultant, waiting for board approval. The Gala photos would soften them up. The charity numbers would do the rest. She fell asleep early, certain that Monday belonged to her. 12 kilometers south, a man in a small condo near the distillery ironed a charcoal suit and laid his mother's name tag on the table beside his cufflinks. Monday came up gray and bitter. By 7:40, the 14th floor smelled of coffee and nerves. Board members gathered in clusters, trading guesses in low voices. Douglas Fenton stood apart by the window, watching the city wake up white. At 7:55, the elevator chimed. Simone Leduc stepped out first, briefcase in hand, and behind her came a man some of them almost recognized. Charcoal suit, quiet face. A watch on his wrist that had not ticked in years, an old Timex with a cracked leather band that once belonged to a housekeeper who hummed gospel in a marble hallway. Candace arrived at 7:58, 2 minutes early, armor on. White suit, red folder, victory smile. She pushed through the boardroom doors, talking before she even looked up. All right, let's make this quick. I have a hotel to run. Then she stopped. The room was full and silent. 8 board members sat along the table like a jury. The chairman's chair at the far end was turned toward the window, its back to the room. A woman she did not recognize stood at the head of the table. Charcoal dress, steady eyes, a stack of documents squared in front of her. Miss Fairchild, Simone Leduc, counsel for Birchfield Capital. Please take a seat. Candace did not take a seat. And Birchfield Capital is what, exactly? A pension raider? A hedge fund? Whoever you are, you called a meeting in my boardroom. Simone opened the folder without hurry. As of 9/12 Saturday morning, Birchfield Capital completed the purchase of 58% of Hargrove Hospitality Group. The Hargrove Family Trust, the Lakeshore Pension Fund, the Dunbar Institutional Account. All signed, all filed, all final. She slid a single page down the table. So, with respect, Miss Fairchild, this is not your boardroom anymore. Candace's eyes flew across the page. Numbers, signatures, a seal. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. Fine. Then where is he? The mystery owner. I will negotiate with a principal, not a lawyer. Simone almost smiled. He is already here. The chairman's chair began to turn. It came around slowly, the leather creaking once, and the morning light fell on a charcoal suit, a quiet face, and a cracked leather watch band. Good morning, Miss Fairchild, Nathaniel said. Please sit. You look pale. The red folder slipped from her hand and slapped the floor. For 3 full seconds, nothing in the room moved. Then she laughed. One sharp note, because her mind had nowhere else to go. You are a porter. How did you get into this boardroom? Security. 2 guards stepped through the door. Neither work for me now, he said. I own 58% of this company. Your office, your title, and your future. He let that settle. Impossible, she whispered. I was a porter long enough to see who you really are. He stood and walked the length of the table. You once told 300 people that men like me clean hallways. You were right. I am here to clean the biggest mess in this building. The board members traded glances, and one finally said it out loud. Okoy. Novatrack. Okoy. Nathaniel nodded once. I built Novatrack Logistics from 1 van and a laptop in a basement apartment in Scarborough. Sold it 3 years ago for more money than I can spend in this lifetime. My mother cleaned rooms in this hotel for 22 years. Esther Okoy, housekeeping, 3rd and 4th floors. He set her name tag on the table, facing the room. She believed this place was worth her whole life. I came to find out if she was right. So for 4 months, I pushed a cart where she pushed hers. I wanted to know what this company looks like from the service elevator, not from a quarterly report. From the service elevator, he paused across. From Candace. I learned housekeepers get denied overtime. I learned staff get written up for speaking their own language on break. I learned names disappear from rosters after complaints. And Friday night, I learned what the chief executive does to a man in a gray vest when she thinks no one important is watching. Simone lifted a remote. The screen on the wall lit up, and there it was in high definition with clean audio. The kneeling, the Riesling tipped all the way. Even the mop needs a mop. The firing. The coat turned out on the stone. The name tag flicked across the floor like a bottle cap. 13 minutes played to a silent room. 2 board members could not finish watching. Douglas Fenton watched every second, hands folded, knuckles white. When the screen went dark, Candace found her voice. That is edited. Out of context. It was a private event. 300 guests and a microphone, Simone said. Which part was private? Candace spun toward the board. You have known me for 7 years. You have seen my numbers. You cannot seriously let a stunt like this. She stopped, because she finally saw their faces. 8 faces. Not one of them was looking at her with anything she recognized. Douglas Fenton rose from his seat with a printed contract in his hand. Miss Fairchild, Section 14 of your employment agreement. The conduct clause you signed at your last renewal. He read slowly, the way men read verdicts. Any public behavior that brings material disrepute to the company or its employees constitutes grounds for termination for cause. He set the contract down. I was at that gala. I watched you pour wine on an employee's head in front of a senator. The room tilted around Candace Fairchild. The bonus folder lay by her shoe, suddenly belonging to another lifetime. Nathaniel returned to the chairman's seat and rested his hands on the table, calm as a Sunday morning. Members of the board, he said, Birchfield Capital calls for a vote on the immediate termination of the chief executive officer for cause. He looked at her, and his voice did not rise at all. You wanted everyone to watch, so we will do this the same way, in the open. Candace moved fast then, the way a drowning person grabs at anything floating. The laughter came first. Okay, all right, this is theater. You hired actors. Douglas, did he pay you? Nobody blinked. The laughter died in her throat. Then the pivot, smooth as oil. Mr. Okoye. Nathaniel. Friday was. I had been drinking. The stress of the gala. You understand how these events get. I poured my heart into that evening, into this company. Her voice found its boardroom polish again. If I had known who you were, I would never have. Everyone heard it. The sentence hung in the air like a confession, because that is exactly what it was. Nathaniel nodded slowly. There it is. That is the problem, Miss Fairchild. You needed to know who I was to treat me like a person. He tapped the name tag on the table. My mother worked here 22 years. Nobody important ever knew who she was either. Imagine how she was treated, or don't imagine. We just watched 13 minutes of it. Simone called the vote, all in favor of terminating the chief executive for cause, effective immediately. Douglas's hand went up first, then the woman beside him, then the next. 8 hands, one by one, around the table. Simone recorded each name without expression. Unanimous. Termination for cause under Section 14. All severance, all bonuses, and all unvested equity are forfeit. The 3.5 million folder stayed on the floor where it had fallen. The polish cracked all the way through. You cannot do this. I built this company's brand. I am this company. Candace's voice climbed. I will sue every one of you. I will. You are welcome to, Simone said pleasantly. Discovery would include the video, the search at the door, and 7 years of personnel files. Please sue. Candace's mouth worked, but the math was already happening behind her eyes. Lawyers love that math. Defendants never do. Nathaniel turned to the door. Send in Mr. Kovacs. Ray Kovacs entered with his chin up, scanning the room. He saw the name tag on the table. He saw Nathaniel in the chairman's seat. The chin came down by degrees. Mr. Kovacs, Nathaniel said. Friday night you searched a man's belongings without cause, on camera, and discarded a personal item belonging to his deceased mother. You are suspended pending investigation. Badge and key card on the table. Kovacs looked at Candace, waiting for the order that would fix everything. She was staring at the wall. Whatever he had been to her, it had mattered only while it was useful. He unclipped the badge slowly, set it on the polished wood, and laid the key card beside it. 2 small clicks in a silent room. On his way out, he paused at the door, but no words came. Some men only discover their voice was borrowed when it gets repossessed. Then it was her turn. Nathaniel did not raise his voice for it. Miss Fairchild, these officers will escort you out. You may collect personal items from your office under supervision. Company property stays. The same 2 guards who had flanked Kovacs at the gala stepped forward. Her own security team, the ones who used to clear hallways for her. One of them said quietly, "Ma'am, this way." The elevator ride down took 14 floors and a lifetime. When the doors opened on the lobby, the morning shift was arriving. Receptionists, bellmen, 2 housekeepers with a cart near the east corridor. Word had already traveled the way it always does in a hotel. Service floor first. Nobody jeered. Nobody clapped. They simply stopped and looked and let her walk the full length of the marble, in heels that suddenly sounded very loud. Halfway across, her heel caught the wet edge of a freshly mopped section. She did not fall, but she grabbed the velvet rope of a stanchion to stay upright. A small yellow sign stood beside the spot. Caution! wet floor. The housekeeper who had placed it looked away politely. Candace Fairchild straightened herself, walked the last 50 feet, and pushed through the revolving doors into a city that no longer worked for her. January hit her full in the face. She had forgotten her coat upstairs. Upstairs, the boardroom exhaled. Douglas Fenton shook Nathaniel's hand and held it a moment longer than business requires. "Your mother," he said. "I think I remember her. Third floor. She used to hum." Nathaniel smiled for the first time that morning. "Every shift," he said, "mostly gospel." She said, "Hotel Marble carries a tune better than any church." Outside the glass, the city went on, snow falling through the streetcar wires, not yet knowing the story it would be telling by Friday. The video broke the surface Tuesday evening. A local CP24 segment ran 40 seconds of it with guest faces blurred. By Wednesday morning, the full 13 minutes sat on every platform that mattered. By Wednesday night, the clip of Riesling falling on a kneeling man had been watched 5 million times. The caption most people shared was 7 words. "The porter she fired owned the hotel." National morning shows picked it up Thursday. They played the kneeling. They played even the mop needs a mop. Then they played the boardroom statement Hargrove released. 4 sentences, no adjectives, signed by the new chairman. Anchors read it twice because it said so much by saying so little. Effective immediately, Candace Fairchild no longer speaks for this company. Hargrove apologizes to its employees, its housekeepers, and every person who has ever worn its uniform. Dignity is not negotiable. Her foundation collapsed faster than her career. The 3 largest corporate sponsors withdrew by Friday. A bank, an airline, a telecom giant, each with the same polished regret. The senator from the Gala released a statement claiming he had left early. Photographs proved otherwise, and the internet enjoyed proving it. The Fairchild Foundation website went down for maintenance that weekend. It never came back up. Inside the hotel, Simone opened the books. Nathaniel gave her one instruction: follow everything, no matter whose name it touches. Her team pulled 7 years of personnel files, termination records, and foundation ledgers. They worked nights in a conference room that smelled of cold coffee and printer toner. Something else loosened inside Hargrove. People started talking. The housekeepers denied overtime filed their records with Simone's team. The front desk clerk, who had been written up for speaking to Gala, sent an email she had been drafting in her head for 3 years. Old fear takes time to die, but it dies faster when the man at the top once wore the uniform. By the end of the month, the tip line had logged over 180 messages. The pattern surfaced within 2 weeks. 13 terminations over 7 years. Everyone a Black, Indigenous, or South Asian employee. Everyone labeled restructuring. A housekeeper fired 9 days after reporting a racial slur from a guest that management refused to address. A banquet supervisor let go 1 month before his pension vested. A receptionist dismissed for tone after asking about pay equity. 13 files, 13 careers. The same signature at the bottom of each one. C. Fairchild. The foundation ledgers told their own story. The gala that raised $1.8 million for underprivileged youth had delivered less than $260,000 to any youth anywhere. The rest dissolved into event costs, consulting fees, and a yacht charter invoiced as community outreach. The yacht with her mother's name on the hull. Simone laid the invoices side by side on the boardroom table and said one word: enough. The 13 began to come forward, one phone call at a time. Some were angry. Some were tired. One, the housekeeper, cried on the phone for a full minute before she could speak. Hargrove did not hide behind lawyers. Nathaniel met 11 of them in person, in the same boardroom with the same chair. Each meeting started with the same sentence: the company owes you an apology, and the company pays its debts. The law moved on 2 fronts. The 13 filed a joint civil suit naming Candace as an individual defendant alongside the human rights complaint. Her old defense, that the company made those decisions, died in depositions because the company was now the one handing over the evidence. Hargrove waived privilege on every memo she had ever written. Few sights in law are stranger than a corporation testifying against its own former queen. Ray Kovacs chose the only door left to him. He sat for a sworn deposition in exchange for a softer landing. Yes, the order to search Nathaniel Okoye's coat came directly from Miss Fairchild. Yes, there had been other orders over the years. Watch this employee. Build a file on that one. He listed them in a flat voice, naming names, while a court reporter's keyboard clicked like sleet on tin. It never reached a jury. 9 months after the gala, Candace Fairchild settled everything at once. The numbers stayed sealed, but the conditions did not. A public apology, written and spoken on camera, personal payments to all 13, repayment of every misused charity dollar, and a consent agreement barring her from serving as an officer or director of any publicly traded company for 10 years. Her lawyers called it prudent. Everyone else called it what it was. The apology aired on a Tuesday. Candace sat at a bare table, no jewelry, reading from a page her lawyers had approved word by word. I treated a man as less than human because of his uniform and his skin. No stress excuses that, no glass of wine excuses that. I was not drunk on wrestling that night. I was drunk on power. For once, nobody doubted she had written that last line herself. There was no prison sentence, and there did not need to be. What Candace lost was the only thing she had ever actually owned. The room. Every room. The tables stopped having a head for her to sit at. The invitations stopped. The cameras pointed elsewhere. She sold the estate in King Township and moved somewhere quieter, where for the first time in her life she was simply a person in line at the Tim Hortons like everyone else. While her name shrank, the company grew lighter. Hargrove paid back every denied hour of housekeeper overtime, with interest going back 7 years. Schedules stopped punishing people who complained. The 13 got more than checks. 4 of them got their jobs back with promotions and back pay. The housekeeper who had cried on the phone now ran the department that had once erased her, and Priya Sharma, the 20-year-old with the steady hands, got a phone call from Simone Leduc. Her video had been licensed by the networks, and the licensing fees belonged to her. The number on the check was larger than 3 years of catering shifts. Attached to it was a note in careful handwriting. You kept the camera steady when grown adults kept their heads down. Hargrove would like to discuss your tuition. Late that spring, a business magazine ran the whole saga under a single photograph. Not of Candace. Not even of Nathaniel in the chairman's seat. The editors chose the frame from Priya's footage where a man kneels on white linen, Riesling shining in his hair, back straight as a flagpole. The headline underneath ran 6 words. He was never the one kneeling. 6 months after the gala, the Hargrove Grand looked the same from King Street. Inside, almost nothing was. The oak-paneled elevator and the steel service elevator still ran side by side, but the pay stubs riding in them had changed. Housekeeping got a 30% raise. Security, the kitchen, the loading dock, all of them. When a reporter from the Globe and Mail asked Nathaniel why he started with the lowest paid floors, he shrugged. Because I have ridden both elevators. Only one of them needed fixing. There is a name for what happened at Hargrove now. New hires hear it during orientation, told plainly. No slides, no music. They watch 4 minutes of the gala footage, then the boardroom statement. A trainer stands at the front and says the same thing every time. This is the only time you will ever see a person treated this way at this company. If you see it twice, you call me. If I don't act, you call him. The boardroom changed too. Every month, 1 seat at the table belongs to a frontline employee. A housekeeper 1 month, a bellman the next. They do not come to listen. Come up with the floor's questions and the floor gets answers. Douglas Fenton, now lead director, calls it the cheapest consulting the company has ever bought. The stock, for those keeping scores, finished the year up 22%. In September, the company gathered in the lobby for an unveiling. A small bronze plaque now sits on the wall of the East Corridor on the 3rd floor, at the exact spot where a night housekeeper used to hum gospel to the marble. The Esther Okoye Scholarship. Full tuition every year for children of service workers, cleaners' kids, security guards' kids, kitchen kids. The first class had 14 names. The first name read aloud was Priya Sharma. The estate in King Township has a new purpose too. Hargrove bought it outright that winter. No more auctions under the frozen maples. Every summer now, the lawn hosts the company picnic, and the families of 1,100 employees eat pea-meal bacon sandwiches where the string quartet used to play. Kids run across the grass. Nobody checks anyone's coat at the door. Priya stood at the little podium in her catering flats and unfolded a piece of paper she never managed to finish reading. She looked at Nathaniel instead. "You said you only remember the names that matter," she told him. "Which is all of them, I get it now." It was not much of a speech. The lobby applauded like it was. In the back, two housekeepers leaned on their cart, and one of them wiped her eyes with a glove. And Nathaniel. Most mornings, if you arrive early enough, you can still find him in the lobby at 4:30. Suit jacket on a chair, sleeves rolled, pushing a utility cart down the east corridor in long, patient strokes, right beside his mother's plaque. The first time a new hire saw it, she stopped dead and whispered to the bellman, "Is that the chairman?" Felix smiled. "That is the porter who owns the place. Around here, those are the same thing." The watch on his wrist still does not tick. He never fixed it, and he never will. Some mornings he catches the light on its cracked band and hears a hum from a marble hallway 22 years deep. Time does not need to move for a promise to be kept. Real talk. I told this story for one reason. Somewhere tonight, somebody in a uniform is getting talked down to by somebody in a suit. And I need you to remember which one of them owned the room. Worth does not come with a title. It never did. So here is my question, and I genuinely want to know. If you were Nathaniel, standing on that floor with Riesling running down your neck, knowing you could end her career with a single sentence, would you have stayed silent until Monday, or would you have said it right there? Drop your answer in the comments. I read every single one. And if this story hit you anywhere at all, share it with someone who wears a uniform to work. A cleaner, a guard, a server, a driver. Let them know somebody sees them. Then subscribe and turn on notifications, because stories like this one land here every single week. The next one might be about somebody you know. Until then, keep your head up and your spine straight, just like Nathaniel.